Hey Rock Rebels, welcome to another episode of Rock and Roll True Stories. And today I'm asking a big question. Did rock and roll lead to the fall of the Iron Curtain and the end of communism in Soviet Russia? Stay tuned to find out. So let's get into a little bit of background before we talk about the epic 1991 Monsters of Rock concert that took place in September of 91 at the Moscow Tushino Airfield. Now, an epic rock concert in Moscow with Western rock bands was actually over 30 years in the making, and I'll tell you why. The first band to actually sneak behind the Iron Curtain was the Beatles in the 60s. A radio station called Radio Luxembourg was played in Russia during the height of Beatlemania, and young Soviets back in the day would record the songs on tapes and then sell them on the black market. Now, this was at a time when you couldn't even buy a Western album by artists legally, let alone see a live show. And the Beatles would write a tongue-in-cheek song about a Soviet spy returning home after a mission in America in their 1968 song Back in the USSR. Now, Russian history professor Sergei Zuk talked about growing up in the Soviet Union and how eager young Soviets were really wanting to get their hands on Western rock music, saying, "It wasn't easy for kids to get their hands on actual albums. You needed tours for that. We had no foreign tourists," he said, "but we had parents, very influential parents, who traveled abroad. KGB officials and children from all these families had all this forbidden music, which they then copied onto cassettes and sold, which created a thriving black market." So this practice of recording and selling Western music would continue for about 20 odd years. And in the 70s, the Soviet Union had its own emerging rock scene, even though these groups wouldn't be allowed to record and sell their records until the 80s. The 80s would bring along much bigger changes than just this small step in the direction of freedom. And in 1985, Mikhail Gorbachev became president, bringing with him two policies that were new and led towards greater openness with the West. These were perestroika, which meant economic and political restructuring, and glasnost, meaning openness. The concept of openness would have him welcome a few Western artists in the couple of years leading up to the 1991 Monsters of Rock show in Moscow. That's right, the Monsters of Rock lineup wasn't actually the first set of Western acts to play Russia. Things would kick off in 1987 with, wait for it, Billy Joel. Okay, not exactly heavy-hitting stuff, but it was a step in the right direction of welcoming live acts behind the Iron Curtain. And in 1989, another show called the Moscow Music Peace Festival would really set the bar for the Monsters of Rock show. It took place in August of 1989 and featured a pretty eclectic lineup, including Skid Row, Cinderella, Bon Jovi, Motley Crue, Ozzy Osbourne, the Scorpions, as well as Soviet groups Gorky Park and Jam, and just over 80,000 fans would attend. I've done a video on the Moscow Music Peace Festival if you guys want to go check it out on my channel. Now, that was nothing compared to the estimated 500,000 to 1 million fans who showed up for the free Monsters of Rock show at the Tushino Airfield on September 28, 1991. Now, at this point, tensions in the Soviet Union were quite high, as a coup to take Gorbachev out of power called the August Push had just failed. Now, the Monsters of Rock started as an annual rock concert and festival at Castle Donington, England, that ran from 1980 to 1996. And in 1983, it branched into several international events, running until 2016 in locations like Germany, South America, Spain, Italy, and Northern Europe. And this is thought to be the largest rock concert of all time, although Soviet police never officially had a head count back then. And the concert would be headlined by AC/DC and also featured Metallica, Pantera, the Black Crowes, and the Soviet group EST. And Pantera would play a short 4-song set, kicking things off with their track Domination, when the show would start at 2 p.m. They also played Cowboys from Hell, Primal Concrete Sledge, and Psycho Holiday. And Pantera frontman Philip Anselmo talked about the experience in a 2015 interview with Blabbermouth online. He talked about landing in Moscow, which he remembered as being very gray and dismal city, and was blown away when he heard Black Sabbath's Planet Caravan playing on the radio on the way to their hotel. He said nobody knew who we were still coming up the ranks. He'd say there was a tremendous audience response and it was a pretty awesome opportunity. Now, Soviet heavy metal band ESP was up next, and they're best known for their song Bully about police brutality. The fact that a Soviet band was allowed to play a song about this showed how government control was becoming less strict. Next up was the Black Crowes, who, like Metallica, were at the height of their fame, and they just released their 1990 debut record Shake Your Moneymaker, which would go multi-platinum. They played a relatively short set that is actually not really well documented, but we do know it included Rainy Day Woman and Stare It Cold. Now, most classic rock fans would get the most excited about Metallica's performance, and the band was at its commercial peak, and had just kicked off what would be their 2.5-year-long tour. The band had just released their self-titled album, or the Black Album, which would go diamond or 16 times platinum on August 12th of that year. Now, Metallica's set started with their usual orchestral opening of The Ecstasy of Gold. They played an 11-song set, including 3 songs in the encore, and they followed that up, in my opinion, with their most famous song, Enter Sandman, and the rest of the setlist included fan favorites like Harvester of Sorrow, Master of Puppets, Sad But True, For Whom the Bell Tolls, Creeping Death, and One. In the encore, they did a cover of the Misfits song Last Caress, and another cover of Diamond Head's song Am I Evil, and wrapped it up with their track Battery. Now, headliners AC/DC just kicked off their 1990 track Thunderstruck, which kicked off their set list. I can only imagine what the energy must have been like at that moment, and I have to admit, I'm a little bit jealous that I wasn't there. And they go on to play a 16-song epic set, which included all of their biggest hits from the late 70s and early 80s, including Back in Black, Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap, Highway to Hell, and Hell's Bells. And they wrapped up their set with For Those About to Rock, We Salute You. So what happened after the show? Well, a few tumultuous months later, on December 25, 1991, Gorbachev handed over power to Boris Yeltsin, and a day later the Soviet Union officially fell and dissolved into separate countries, followed by many years of conflict and strife. Back in the US, Time Warner Incorporated, who had been given the rights to record the show, released 1992's well-received For Those About to Rock, Monsters in Moscow. And Metallica's performance of Harvester of Sorrow and Creeping Death from the show were used as B-sides for the Sad But True single in different regional editions. They also released recordings from their set on the 2016 Monsters of Rock album. So I want to hear from you guys. What do you think? Was the Monsters of Rock show a turning point that finally led to the fall of the Soviet Union? I want to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comment section below. I also want to let you guys know that we'll be doing an online event on Friday, April 3rd. We're going to be doing a live listening party for our patrons with the playlist picked by you guys. If you guys want to sign up, visit our Patreon page, which is down in the description box below, and sign up for the groupie or band member level, and you'll get a chance to check out the listening party next month. You'll also get some other great perks as well. And remember guys, bands may break up, legends will die, but music lives on. Take care.